Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another home theater hangout with yours truly. We got Jordan from Haterade,
What's up?
Cowboy Cinema, and then we got Erik from Perlisten. Jordan, you
How
could
you
do your
doing,
intro
guys?
now.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Haterade Hour, or Haterade Live, the Haterade Hour podcast. Kicking it with Shane and Eric from Perlisten tonight. Hope you guys enjoy the show.
All right, so you know what? Before we get into these speakers that we're going to talk about, let me just go over some news for today, which I think is fairly new. So available now on Marantz and Denon Pre-Pros receivers, we have Dirac Art, which I personally don't have any experience with myself. However, updates prices are like 350. Well, that's for the standard. How much is art? It's 299.
299, yeah.
It's not
So
bad.
for the update, not bad. If you don't have it at all, the whole package is 799, which I'm sure Erik has had some experience with. Erik, have you used it and what is it like?
Yeah, I have actually used it a couple times, and so it's actually very cool. So it's pretty similar to. This is a very drastic simplification, but think of noise canceling, um, and that perception is subwoofer sends out information. We've got different positions in the room. They're all different phases. They're all different amplitudes. And what you're doing is just changing the arrival time uh, and helping other subwoofers supplement that. So it works quite well.
Mm,
Um, I think it's one of those kind of things that is a big improvement, and we've had some great experiences with it. I think you do have to have some intelligence about the settings. You can be, and I know it's actually evolved and gotten a lot better as from the first couple of times that we used it as well. We did it a couple of shows and demos, um, and it works much better within specific limits, not going too high in frequency. It works, up to 150, maybe even 200 hertz. But just because it works doesn't mean it sounds great
yeah.
at those settings. And what I found a long time ago is if you set it too high, one, you're now sharing the load between maybe your mains and even surrounds. And then you start localizing sounds that shouldn't be in speakers in different positions of the room.
Hmm.
And you can actually degrade. You may have great performance and great flat frequency response throughout the room, but you doesn't necessarily mean it sounds good. And so that's kind of with the caveats of that. It
Yeah.
works great. It really does what it says it can do. So yeah, it's a pretty cool technology. You just have to be careful in settings.
When you
How do you think it stands up to a waveform?
It's very very different from my perspective. It's been a long time since I've A B'd them or been where you've done one versus the other. The disadvantage of waveforming is more woofers.
Yeah.
The advantage is that you truly remove the room. You basically take a standing wave in a room and you make it a traveling wave. So you take out all the interactions with the room itself. And theoretically it's perfect, but obviously it's never perfect. That absorption, the front wave emits a wavefront. The back room subwoofers absorb that energy, so it's not reflected back. If it's not reflected back, you can't have a standing wave. So the aspects of now you put stuff in a room and risers and all that. It's never absolutely perfect, but from that aspect, it works pretty good. The negative is you got double the amount of subwoofers.
Yeah.
So from a cost perspective, it can be kind of tough. But now there's cylindrical waveforming. There's some other solutions that they're coming up with that are again a little bit of a sacrifice, but generally, it takes the you can't take the ceiling mode out then. So halfway through the height of the room
Mm,
would be a null. Depending on the height of where you're sitting, though, generally you're not sitting at that. Your head isn't quite at that position,
yeah.
but it would be the main mode of one single null instead of 8 or 10 nulls throughout the bandwidth that you generally deal with when we deal with room modes. So
Do you think if they have a system where they have waveforming plus they add in your capable speakers, kind of like art, into the mix, that would rectify that?
oh, theoretically, probably gets kind of crazy because then you're going to start fighting what you're doing with the waveforming. So
Yeah, true.
those two technologies are actually going to start combating each other. You have a traveling wave that is now being affected by other speakers in a room from multiple positions. There's probably a logical or intelligent way to do it. Someone way smarter than me in signal processing, depending on what you might do and at what frequencies and where you stop being a traveling wave and which frequencies you start to uh, use an art technique.
Right.
So when you say art, like if it's not calibrated correctly, your settings aren't correct, you can start to localize. Is it just the lower frequencies that you localize, or is it actual like stuff in the mix of content?
Yeah, it's in the upper bands. So when you start saying you're sending signal from, let's say, 100 hertz or 150 hertz or something like that, and you start saying, well, I want to cancel that signal from another surround or another main to help make sure that they sum perfectly at the listening position, and not you're not hearing a node, anti-node, then you're starting to now have a signal that was in your right speaker is now coming from the left
Mm,
speaker. And that's not where it should be. It's not where it should be coming from as a technique of object oriented recording, right? Where is it at
right.
spatially in space? Um, that was quite a few years ago, last time that I had used it in a demo. So there may be some more improvements in signal processing that they've done since then. And then there's also probably that I'm pretty sure they've kind of set the limit or found the sweet spot when you talk to Storm Audio or someone else from Dirac of where they want those settings to be to get those, the best settings, the best performance, right? So,
So is your preferred calibration technique, would it be art or waveform?
uh, actually, I don't know. I have used them, I think, in a smaller room, more cost effective scenario.
Mhm.
Art is a great performance. Um, you know, that's really a really cool, affordable way to get great bass throughout the space. Um, I don't really have a strong preference for either one. We use waveforming quite often from some recent shows because they were one of our most recent partners. So I've got the most recent experience with them and a few demo rooms. But both are great performances. I've never used it well, actually, I have. At MWave, we used it in a really large room. And it worked really well in that perspective. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to try it out very
Have
soon.
you had the chance to do kind of an A/B or in your room do both?
I haven't. I haven't. I think up till now, only Storm had the exclusive on it.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I might have to get like an AV10 or something in to try it out.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just sucks because it's kind of like I got all these speakers in there. I got like 2 dozen speakers in there, and I know the AV10 doesn't do that many. So I
Yeah,
feel
and I
like,
think, great technologies like both of them are is that there's always a limitation in performance of a loudspeaker, right?
yeah,
And you're asking more out of a woofer in both scenarios. But I don't think it's that different than standard bass management. When
yeah,
we have standard bass management and doing a really good calibration is hard. A lot of systems that we use have these auto calibrations. They, oh, I set up my little microphone. I measured 4 subwoofers, and auto calibration does some stuff, and now it's great, right?
yeah,
Well, most of the time, we're probably leaving a lot of performance on the table.
yeah,
And chasing a perfectly flat curve doesn't mean it sounds great.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people, oh, I PQ'd this down 10 dB for these peaks, so it was equal with a null. Well, you just threw away 10 dB of
Yeah.
performance.
Hmm.
So chasing the perfect flat curve and I've heard perfectly flat curves, and sometimes you lose the impact, right? Because they're not summing in a perfect phase alignment. What a lot of my really high end calibrators do is, even with Trinoff, with Storm, doesn't really matter whether they come upon an AVR or whatever, they are matching phase with the subwoofers first.
Hmm.
So time and phase alignment. So what happens in that scenario then when you start adding the subwoofers in is you remove a lot of the limitations of what an algorithm in a processor is doing. It's taking that data, the amplitude and the phase measurements, it's making lots of assumptions in the background. We don't know what those assumptions are, right? It's base management being controlled by whatever processor. A lot of those assumptions may be just dead wrong, or maybe it was a poor measurement. It was noisy in the background. It was, very. There was lots of reflections and noise going on in the room from the walls rattling, etc.
Yeah.
And it's picking up that in the signal, and it starts making assumptions that maybe are incorrect or maybe not the greatest data. And then your base management is, trying to make up for a lot of problems, and maybe they're not real problems. And so that performance is, not necessarily great at that point in time. Taking like huge peaks and just PQing them down a little bit. I mean,
Hmm.
EQ actually improves decay, even though it's just plain old EQ, it doesn't. There are true sound quality benefits to taking down a resonance and some of that decay. So those decisions that the processor has to make are a lot less now. Therefore, the end result is a lot better. So those are some great techniques of
So, so are
doing.
you EQing before you do a room correction, or would you room correction first, then EQ?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me those questions of saying, "Hey, what should I do?" And I used to think, and that's how much we've learned over the last 5 years. I think even in the processing capabilities, but how much I've learned actually over about bass in a room and stuff like that is EQing first and doing the time and phase alignment
Yeah.
can is a big improvement. And even if it's just EQ, EQ first. I used to say, let base management do it. It's probably doing a better job than you're going to. Um, there may be some situations if you're not very experienced where that's true. But PEQing out some of those giant peaks.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, everyone, you cannot boost a null.
Yeah.
It's a perfect cancellation. You're just going to make your woofer drive move farther, create distortion. So don't do that. Um, But PQing the peaks down a little bit does also improve the end result in standard base management. Again, it's got fewer decisions to make of what sacrifices it's going to internally decide to sum a bunch of subwoofers together. So
Yeah. What, I used to, I don't know. I feel like Trinov always changes their mind. At first, they were like, yeah, you know what? Use your PQs on our subs before waveforming, so that
yeah,
way it has less to do. And then recently, they're like, you know what? Do it after waveforming. So I'm like, what?
yeah, and I think they're learning a lot as they go,
Yeah.
and they're making improvements and learning more. A lot of people, physics
Yeah.
sucks sometimes. It's really hard. Acoustics is one of the hardest things on the planet, and I do used to just think I was stupid, but physics is really the physics of acoustics is really hard. There's so much going on in a room, reflections and storage of energy, just like in electricity we have inductors and capacitors. Well, in acoustics there's still a storage of energy, whether that's air reflection off walls, the flexing, and now it reflects back an energy that comes later in time, and you get all that all changes phase. Every time you change the PEQ, it changes phase. Every time you have absorber or whatever, everything is changing constantly, and so that's a lot to deal with in a room and acoustics. And so yeah, pre EQing is done quite often, and time alignment and phase alignment if you have the ability to measure, use REW.
Yeah.
These are advanced skills for anyone. So if you can do it, do it. If you don't have a lot of, if you have a lot of patience, try it. I
Yeah.
have a lot of people ask me, how do I set up subs for 2 channel as an example. There's no bass management, and it's really difficult. It's not for the faint of heart. But if you do enjoy measurements and you have patience, you want to take some time, you want to learn, you can get a massively better system in a 2.1, 2.2. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I recently did my theater. So I did the EQ after waveforming, because pre waveforming they like to make you think it's magic, but I was just like, oh, the second row sounds a little off, so I had to manually do it. It took me like 45 minutes, but
yeah,
it sounds pretty sick now, like so
yeah.
good. Yeah.
So in theory, pre EQing and waveforming, let's think about it. Why would I PEQ something, right? I've
Yeah.
got some peaks and nulls.
Yeah.
What happens when you have waveforming? There are no peaks and nulls. There's no standing waves. So
That's what they
what?
say.
So what are you PEQing, right? So I think that's kind of the question mark of why would I pre EQ in that scenario? Um, and I guess that's the question, right?
Yeah.
And if you are pre EQing, PEQing, you're changing phase of the woofers, you're changing something. That may make it more difficult to do waveforming because it's trying to calculate all that out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah,
They give me a
I don't
different
know.
story all
There,
the time,
there
man.
is people smarter than me doing those algorithms. So
So the question is for you guys out there: are you guys using waveforming or Dirac art? If so, what is your calibration of choice? And now that we were talking about flat curves or flat speakers, this will bring us over to the brand new Perlisten A Series. I haven't looked at any of your charts or anything like that, but I'm assuming they probably measure somewhat similar to the other two.
yeah, absolutely. There's kind of the we're not using the DPC full on. There is some trickle tone technology into these for sure. But yeah, we don't believe in changing targets just because it's a higher price speaker, a more affordable speaker. Those targets are pretty much the same.
Mm.
When you have a little more technology, you have the ability to maybe get it a little more optimized, more perfect than you when you really want to. But that's about it. Same frequency targets, off axis, power response. It doesn't really matter. Those are the metrics that you look for in a loudspeaker to sound great in a room. And so, yeah, those targets are still the same. Absolutely.
So a couple of questions from my Patreon crew. Not having the array, what are we missing?
Yeah, so you're missing a little more of that vertical control, right? So the horizontal still nice and wide. I see Stephen Kelly got a demo here in the UK. I was just there, so he's complimenting the sound that he still thinks it sounds like Perlisten. So that's great. And yeah, so that vertical is not as controlled, but it is in some aspects because we have a
Mm.
much larger waveguide. And that larger waveguide allows us to have control at lower frequencies. So it is a slight, not quite as good as the DPC, but it's still darn good because we use the larger waveguide. And then also you see that in the A2S there, but in the A3M, A4T, A3T, the goal is those woofers are also much closer. You can see them; they're kind of positioned under the waveguide,
Yeah.
and that is to get some of those characteristics back. Those maintain that control in the vertical. The waveguide plays down to 1 kilohertz, just like we do in our other designs. So a lot of that distance between the woofers is mitigated, maintaining that vertical control. Um, and a much larger tweeter diameter, 35 millimeters, so we can handle that power, that excursion down at lower frequencies as well. And there's a ton of gain from the larger waveguide, so that efficiency goes up at lower frequencies. So those are all the balance that you put back into saying we're still maintaining playing down to 1 kilohertz. The woofers only play up to 1 kilohertz, so that mitigates some of those problems of being spaced apart, and also mitigates. A lot of people ask about the diffraction of the woofer edge behind the waveguide a little bit there.
Yeah.
That is largely taken out of the picture because they only play up to 1 kilohertz. So if they're not playing 1 kilohertz, that distance between the lip of the waveguide and the driver is it never really occurs. So that's one of the benefits. There's a little bit of effect of the diffraction off that a little bit, but nothing too drastic.
What are we missing from the top-down tweeters with this new Teteron dome?
So yeah, Teteron is actually a name. I think it was from originally 3M back in the day. I think there might have been someone else who made it originally, and it's basically it was a manufactured replacement for silk, but having some better properties, some really good properties. We made the dome much taller, and what happens in larger dome too, you start to get breakup, and then your extension rolls off before you get up to 20 kilohertz and beyond. So we did some really cool tooling. It looks like a golf ball. It's got some dimples on it. I don't know if there's any close-ups. I doubt it that you can see good enough. But it kind of
Yeah.
looks like a golf ball on the dome, and it's not there just for looks or cosmetics. It actually really stiffens up the dome,
Hmm.
so we get nice extension well beyond 20 kilohertz, so about 32, 35 kilohertz. So some cool technologies there. That's always the fun stuff is, a lot of times you're solving problems as an engineer. That's the fun stuff. You tell an engineer to go make something, and they go, "Well, tell me something that doesn't work, so I can fix something." They want to
Hmm.
improve something. So that was pretty cool. Cool development in the A series that applies throughout the whole line.
So was this because I think the first time we saw this was last year. These released in the UK first, right?
Yeah, originally we had some markets that were really, there wasn't a lot of higher end customers in those markets. So they had, some of our distributors really had a need for some more affordable products. So we kind of said, yeah, we'll just release it for them. And then as time went on, a lot of these other markets have said, well, we want something more affordable too. And having a lot of customer feedback of saying, I'd really love to step in to Perlisten. We believe in your technology, but man, it's just not in my budget. And so we decided to kind of step through and release it for a few people in the marketplace as went, and everybody's loved it so far. So it's not quite a worldwide release, but it's kind of getting that way. So everyone's really enjoyed them. They've loved the sound. Um, Say it represents Perlisten, and that's kind of what we stick to. Whether it's higher end or more affordable, is what do we do different, and how do we stick to what we believe in? And someday down the road, if we come up with something better, we'll move on to that too as well. It's never about, oh, we designed the DPC, that's the end of the world, it's the best technology ever, and maybe 10 years from now we go, hey, we found something better, let's make a change, and go, oh, we can't. Our technology says this is the best. Well, life says we're always going to get better. We're always going to improve stuff. So even that technology trickled down, kind of fell into the A series about, how well we moved the woofers a little bit closer together, did a little larger tweeter, to get lower frequency performance, kind of stick to that 1 kilohertz tweeter, covering more of the vocal range. And so a lot of that technology really followed through.
Are these using bigger woofers than the R series?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they are. So they're essentially 8 inch woofers. So a little more of that full range subwoofer, kind of that little more fun per se.
Yeah.
Not really any more extension, but just a little more of that output capabilities. I think they have around 12, 13 millimeters X max, getting somewhere close to 15. So they got some real nice excursion, a little less sensitivity to give that a little more extension. So yeah, overall a little more fun. I would say not quite as high at peaks, not as much dynamic range. So that's what you will enjoy in the R series versus an S series. Absolutely, 117 dB peak on an S7T versus 111 or so as you had up on your data there. So
Would you recommend people staying within the same line, or if somebody said, "Hey, I want my LCR to be the S series, but then I want to save some money and go with the A series," would you recommend that, or would you say you should probably stick within the same DCP array? DCP array.
yeah, that's always a question, and I get it quite often. And there is never going to be a replacement for keeping to a similar series. Um, Phase accuracy is something that has had a lot of research about consistency, and since we do have the same frequency targets, off-axis targets, if there was ever a company that you could probably, as closely as possible, sacrifice from mixing series, it is Perlisten, because a, a lot of manufacturers will have one speaker, and the next speaker, even though it's the same materials, won't even have the same targets. Right? That everything's kind of different. We don't believe in that. So off-axis frequency response targets will be kind of similar, but tonality materials is something that you can never avoid.
Yeah.
They will never ever be the same. A Teteron tweeter is never going to sound like our silk. Our silk's never going to sound like our beryllium. Blah blah blah. So those materials all have their own slight tonal characteristics. So if that's your utmost importance to you, don't mix. You can get into trouble too to saying I play really loud, I have this maximum performance, and now I'm sacrificing my experience by maybe having something that can't quite play as loud. Those are all the decisions and questions that I would ask someone if they're going to do that. But I totally understand when someone says, I love 2 channel and I want my front three to be matching the best experience possible. And maybe I have S series and I want to mix in A series and surround, or I have R series up front for that performance and I have A's, around as surrounds. We're never going to stop people from doing that. And, if that's what they want. But the ideal is to keep all those materials, phase coherence, all those kind of things. When you're listening to object oriented recordings in space, I have my front, it's a triangulation, right? You're taking, when there's an object moving in space and it's not exactly out of speakers, between the speakers, you're blending in the information from 3 different speakers throughout the whole room as it moves with triangulation. One of those speakers is not like the others. We're back to Sesame Street here. Um, so you can notice, hey, that some of these speakers don't sound the same. So
Yeah.
my imaging and staging or position of that object isn't going to be quite as accurate. So there's always sacrifices, and that may be fine for someone.
What do you say to those guys that are like, I can just EQ my speakers to match?
Yeah, no, you can't, because that's tonality,
Yeah.
that's phase. You can't EQ phase. Your phase is what's the natural phase response of that speaker. If you EQ it, you are also changing phase, but you're just starting from a different point, and you're ending at a different point. So yeah, it's not about amplitude as much as it is phase and tonality. And so those are the differences. And again, amplitude is pretty much, we kind of have the same target, right? We believe in a flat frequency response. Whatever is recorded comes out. If it's recorded like crap, it's going to come out like crap. If it's recorded awesome, it's going to come out awesome. And so frequency responses and amplitudes are going to be pretty consistent across all the models, but the phase and tonality of each is different, period. Yeah.
Is there a reason why these are not T-Check certified?
Yeah, I think there's really no point at that perspective to say which performance requirement do I meet, what's needed in a home theater um, that, meets a specific requirement. I think by now everybody kind of knows our performance is good. We don't fluff our performance. There's nothing about you know, exaggerating anything in what we do. We share frequency responses. At this point, there's nothing to prove other than, hey, we make good products and we want to back that up, and it's in the product. Yeah,
Oh, another question here.
sure.
Build quality. I had a. Oh, let me share a couple images here really quick.
Yeah.
So this is a gentleman from my Patreon. So we had put up a video last week or so, and he went and picked himself up a few A series
Nice.
speakers for his home theater.
Ah, excellent.
So he got rid of his SVS Pinnacles,
Okay.
and he was saying he was blown away by how more deep that center channel sounds now with vocals.
Yeah, yeah. You know, center channels are, yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, he
Awesome.
went all out.
Nice.
Um, Center channels are one of the most difficult speakers, and I find almost absolutely everyone over exaggerates that 200 to 400 hertz range
Hmm.
in a center channel. And surprisingly enough, there's a lot of movies that just don't record vocals well, and that even exasperates some of those issues. So there's a third thing about where they're positioned. Generally we put a center channel and it's on something, right? Sometimes
Yep.
we use a stand, but generally it's on a table. It's on a front, exactly like that. This guy is definitely using it the right way. He put it towards the front edge. There's also that floor bounce, which
Yep.
can cause issues kind of commonly in those frequencies as well too. So there's a lot of ways that can add detriment to the center channel and the vocalization. So yeah, it's always a tough situation in those cases. But uh, sometimes even the source, the speaker itself, they have really the frequency response kind of exaggerated in those areas, which is frustrating.
Are you gonna make a dedicated center for this series, or kind of like the S series?
Yeah, no, at this point in time, we're not. We kind of designed the A3M with that aspect of it. It's good vertical and horizontal in that position. So
Mhm.
that's the use case there. Um, yeah, so it really works for both. Yeah.
Is there going to be a matching A series subs?
No, there is not. At this point in time, you never say never, but at this point in time, if we can't find the right sub for you by now with our ridiculous amount of subwoofer line, then we've got problems. No, I think we're really sticking with the R series. They're really, one of the perspective is, I think subwoofers and sound quality is one of the most important aspects of a sound system. I'm pretty sure everyone on this channel can say I added a great sounding subwoofer and my overall system got better.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what speakers they have. So sticking with the sound quality level of subwoofers with the R series and above is really where we're going to stick to.
Yep.
And from size perspective, cost, it's really worth the investment. So
And what's the material made of? Is it um, the same as the R series, the cabinet? or is it?
Cabinet is yeah, so it's still MDF. It's standard MDF. It's not the high density MDF which we use on a lot of stuff. On everything else, the high density is about 35% more dense. Therefore, is it is heavier. So we do use standard MDF on these, but it is still the same cross bracings. The front baffle is I think it's 50 millimeters, or is it 55? It's 50 millimeters, I think, thick front baffle because it's two layers. So there's still all the kind of overbuilt qualities that you would expect internally structure. So there's very limited residence throughout the cabinet. Um, Full damping, internal Dacron. Air. We still stuck with air core capacitor or inductors, so really high end inductors, um, and still really nice high end polypropylene 5% tolerance capacitors. So I mean, there's still a whole lot going on internally with the quality of those products as well. Crossovers. Actually, in one experiment we had done, me and Dan had we were doing some listening. We had an iron core in one of the uh, signal pass and said, "Hey, we listened to it," and I'm like, what the heck is that sound?" I'm like, that's something sounds like distortion in the tweeter. So we walked over, grabbed an air core inductor, and put that same value in there, and everything was gone. So I'm like, yep, we're sticking to our guns. We're sticking with air core inductors. So
Nice. And the finish is, I'm assuming that's a matte finish. Is that?
yeah, so these are all matte black. So we do get a lot of discussions on the high gloss, which is the higher end finish, but reflections in that home theater experience. So yeah, these are all matte black at this point in time.
I remember I had emailed you because I really wanted to do all of the R2 on walls, like everywhere, like 18 of them. But then I was
Hmm.
like, I was so close. I was like, I can't live with gloss. I just can't do it.
That's rough.
Yeah, I've had a couple people do solutions with some velvet cloth that they just kind of stick to the side so reflection doesn't happen. And the negative part of it is we already have a million SKUs, so adding more is kind of tough. Especially when we were early on in our development. We just you don't know how successful we're going to be. How many models should you have, and you don't want to make it a lot worse. So as we've grown, obviously the theater side has also grown much more as well too, and so that matte black is definitely understood that we need that, and people
Yeah.
want that. So
Question for you: in your daily analytics, have you noticed more of a trend of two channel or home theater? And how is home theater stacking up today with the consensus of everybody in the world?
yeah, I think all over the world in the last few years with war and politics, and there's been a lot of struggles going on throughout the world. The two channel market has been a little slow. I think we find that in all the biggest markets. Doesn't matter the brand. You can do your research, and whether it's Focal or whoever, B&W, any of those kind of brands, the two channel market's been a little bit slow. Home theater for us has still been huge part of our growth, and we're still continuing on developing more two channel products. We kind of develop, being a small company, we can't develop two channel and home theater all, at the same time. Sometimes you have limits of the products that you can create, and you can only do so much with the size of our team. But there's no less focus on either one for us. So two channel is a high priority for us now. We kind of did a lot of work towards the home theater side. It's grown us quite a bit throughout the world markets, and but we still use that two channel as the focus of our technologies, how that trickles down, and eventually that'll trickle down into the home theater market. So we kind of go back, flip flop, back and forth, two channel home theater, two channel home theater, and so yeah, we're working on some exciting things right now in the two channel world. Simultaneously, still working on some great home theater stuff. Much higher end performing stuff in both categories. So I think a lot of people will be really excited uh, about what's made us successful is really that we believe in two channel experiences in a home theater, and that you can have detail and accuracy. And when you have that in a home theater experience, big bang boom loud is fun. We all love it. We're all the first to admit it here on this call, and everyone who's online here. But when you hear the detail and accuracy of that quiet moment, and it's just the right position, it's in space, or something happens and you jump, that's pretty special. Anyone can do big bang boom, but doing that with low sound, with low THD, high output, and lots of dynamics with detail and accuracy, that's special. And that's not done by too many brands.
Yeah.
I am biased, so
Yeah. No.
I think I can say that without. I don't mean it arrogantly. I just think that's our goals, right? That's what we try to achieve in every product. So.
Did you find any kind of like pushback when you guys made your speakers THX certified? Because typically those were kind of affiliated with movie theaters and home theaters, not
Yeah,
so much audiophile guys.
yeah. Especially when very very early on in our brand, we were very cognizant of getting many. We didn't do any home theater reviews for the first year and a half. That was very cognizant of if we will, excommunicado ourselves from the two channel world if we say, oh, it's THX,
Yeah.
and THX was wonderful for us. It brought brand awareness, and they have extreme, parameters to make Dominus. We knew that had never been done before, and that was a great way to say, hey, we this is validating what we can perform and the capabilities of it, plus sharing all the data that proved it. So that was very instrumental in our growth. But two channel reviews, stereophile runner up of the year. When we released the S7T, we waited for those kind of reviews first, because that helped wipe away a little bit of the fear that, oh, that's a home theater company. And I still have, sometimes happens. We're also focusing back on two channel again, as we move towards the next couple of years of product development, merely because in the last couple of years we've released a lot of home theater products. So there's always somebody new to your brand. I don't care how old your brand is, but when you're Perlisten and you're only 5 years old, there's a lot more new people to your brand. And sometimes it's the most recent articles, right? It's the most recent social media, and it's been a lot of home theater based, releases. So I again kind of get people, well, you're a home theater company, not a two channel, and so we want to keep trying to tell that story that they can be the both. But we also need to have the reviews to support that as well, and have the social media out there, kind of brand awareness. There's some exciting stuff probably coming up in some two channel based articles. We have the new Black Edition that's being
Yeah.
released. So yeah, there's a lot more information recently. I have the D8IS subwoofer,
Yeah.
and that was surprisingly well. Um, there's a lot more interest in two channel than we ever expected. So I don't know if you've seen it recently. We actually designed that for CI, being a really, really thin, with the same amount of output as a D212S. So it actually
Hmm.
sit at 10 hertz by almost 3 dB. So we got a lot more out of it than expected. and it's probably the best sounding woofer we have to date. And so the two channel world has really taken on that. Hey, it doesn't take up a lot of footprint,
Yep.
and when I have a small room and I want lots of bass output, I want no giant D215S in there. So this is it's a weird form factor, but everybody has loved it because it is different. And then when they hear it, they're like, "Oh, the performance is awesome!" So that's exactly what I want. So we created a bass, so it stands up. It's got vibration isolation bass. It's force canceling, and yeah, you can see it on our website. It should be up there now. And force canceling, super thin. You could fit it in a stud wall. It was originally designed to be um, an in wall, and but has been well accepted in the two channel world.
Oh, I had a question. Somebody had asked, how would you decouple that from the wall if you're hanging it on your wall?
So yeah, that's because it's force canceling. Doesn't have any vibration. So at
Hmm.
Expo, I don't know if either of you guys were there. I don't recall.
No.
We took a glass of water and put it on top of it, and put a red light behind it, and so you could see it. And we were playing it crazy loud, and there's no vibration. So the force cancellation, it's solid aluminum.
Yeah.
So if no vibration is created, we don't induce it into the wall. So that's a great technology. That's
Gotcha.
worth a lot in performance to a lot of people. It can be mounted in wall. When you see that section there, those are the brackets actually for on wall that you just had. You'd have to have, it's over 200 pounds, so you'd have to have one heck of a wall mounting to make sure you're
Yeah.
mounting it on wall. And then there's some beautiful end caps that go on it, so you could make it very cosmetically beautiful if you wanted to. Um, and I think, is there a couple more pictures on there? Do we show the base? I'm not sure if we've updated that. Yeah, so there in that
Whose
picture,
home theater is this?
it's got the base on it. Now that's the two channel world. That's the two channel application. Yeah,
Some guy lives in a cave in this one.
yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So yeah, it's a 20 millimeter thick steel base with rubber feet. Yeah,
Those things are heavy. I mean, even on the
it
R5,
is
it's super
crazy.
heavy. That looks like it's even heavier.
So for past 6 months, I've been unloading and loading these at shows,
Hmm.
and I keep telling Dan that I'm going to quit because my back can't take it anymore. The black editions are also over 200 pounds.
You
And
guys don't have
so,
helpers?
yeah, well, that's my number one goal is that we get big enough that we can hire people to move
Oh,
stuff for us. So I don't have to do it anymore.
yeah. Steve had said, he said, "Hey, man, do you want to check out the D8IS?" I was like, "How much does it weigh?" He goes, "I think it's like three something in the package, in the
Well,
crate."
yeah, in
I
box,
was, I
it
was like,
comes
"Yeah, I don't know, dude."
it comes in a flight case, so it's kind of crazy big. But 3 kilowatts, no vibration, very low distortion. It's a great product.
Yeah, it looks. Did you set this up for? I would assume this would be great for waveforming.
Yeah, exactly. That was original
Yeah.
why the on-wall mounting technique was there. This is it's a waveforming. It actually can fit in a 2 by 12 studded wall, since it's that thin, and it's 8/8 in a
Yeah.
force canceling, so it has 24 inches of woofer surface
Eight
area,
eighths.
with 20 millimeters of X max because it's an 8, so we can't go too crazy there. But 24-inch woofer with 20 millimeters X max is that's a pretty high performing product.
Is there
But
a
then
world?
you have the moving mass of an 8, right? So the speed and accuracy and detail of an 8, the impact, the punch. We just got back. Literally, I got back a few days ago from the UK and Germany on 2 shows, and everybody's like, "That's crazy amounts of impact." Um, because of that transient response capabilities.
So, is there a version that you would ever make for maybe slightly less prettier one if you were going to put this in your wall? Because obviously I wouldn't want to like hide that behind the screen
Yeah,
or
I
put
know
it in the
it
wall.
is when you see it is you're like it's all aluminum. It's 6 millimeter thick aluminum. It's all it's damped in the insides. It's beautiful. It's just a beautiful piece, and that's kind of what happened. Was why did we add the base? It was originally going to be sold just like that, right? It's
Yeah.
either in wall mounted or on wall mounted. And then everybody's like, it's too beautiful to hide. So that's where we made
Yeah.
that bottom page with the foot that okay, the two channel world and the two channel world loves it too. So it's great example of multiple use cases.
It's only piano black, Eric.
Yeah, it's only brushed. It's brushed aluminum, so it's black anodized brushed aluminum. So that's it.
Don't put that on your
Actually,
screen.
it shouldn't say piano black. We all have to change that.
I got you. Okay.
It's brushed aluminum.
I was gonna say that isn't lit piano.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
really
no,
matte. Yeah.
it's a really sexy brushed aluminum.
Oh, hold on. We got a Give me a second here.
Got a super.
So this is from Walberto. This is that was his home theater that we showed previously. He's the one that bought
Oh,
the A
cool.
series.
Oh really? Oh nice.
Yeah. So they're MDF, but they are built like tanks. A4T is about 115 pounds, A3M about 60, A2S about 30 pounds. I'm waiting for special brackets to install the A2S as surrounds on my back wall.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't underbuild anything, and my back pain proves it. We're getting too old for this stuff, but everything we make is heavy. Everything we make is big.
So what would you say on average? How many iterations do you guys go through from like when you start designing a speaker to the final product?
So yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of the core, it really depends where you're at in a core technology. So like when we did the DPC development, that was we really have every time you do a speaker system, you at least in our eyes and how we design, you always start with the tweeter first, right? How loud can it be? What frequencies can it play? What kind of sensitivity am I going to get? So, and then you can build woofers around it. You can build your mid ranges around it, whatever. Because if you have a mid woofer system that's 90 dB sensitive and you got an 80 dB tweeter, that ain't going to work so well. So, you have to start with the tweeter first and what's my sensitivity for the overall system going to be. And, then we build targets around that. So, like the DPC was 28 revisions on
Jeez.
COMSOL. Those took those were about 12 hours a piece. Each one ran and then it was always days of kind of analyzing it. Does this work? What this doesn't look right. I want to change this. Dan would draw the waveguide, change shapes, kind of on what his experiences he would want, and then the next night I would run them, let them run all night, and we made changes that way, and then we prototyped. So overall, as amount of work, it was a ton of work, and but that's a core technology. Once we got the DPC done, that really was the foundation and just bled into each design, right? So that core technology was a huge amount of development, at least a year overall. And then the following speakers just kind of fall in their place. It's a variation of this woofer. It's a voice coil, and it's kind of the same thing. What do I want this mid woofer or woofer technology to be? How much excursion can it handle? How much shorting rings am I going to have for reducing inductance? Blah blah blah. Those core technologies, and then you're like woofer speakers in those lineups 1, 2, 3, 4, just all different variances of the right impedance, voice coil winding widths for the DX Max, and they all kind of fall into place pretty quickly. So, that's a kind of a loaded question. There's a lot of upfront work, but that blends into the rest of the speaker lineup and designs and core technology and Obviously, our series was a little different, but we had again kind of that core technology of DPC that blends in. And the A series was kind of again a little bit of a new development because it was different. Wasn't using exactly the DPC. Kind of has the principles of the DPC, but in a two way and three way designs, and so it was a little more ground up. The tweeter was ground up again on that design. Again, all the spiders and surrounds are all new ground up design. Every woofer in a series is pretty much different size woofers. New surround design, more modeling. So, but that's the fun stuff. It's what we really love to do. Sometimes we all get caught up in running a business and doing everything we need to do, just like you guys do, right? There's portions of the stuff you really love, like talking to me, versus maybe when you're editing videos all until 4 in the morning. Maybe that's not so much fun sometimes, but we all got to do it. So uh, but yeah, we really love designing, and I think that's why we've created so many designs in such a short period of time. Is one of experience. We're all 25-year plus vets, so that experience has been there forever. That's why we were successful, not because we're geniuses or anything else like that. We've just got a lot of experience and kind of know and brought that to a brand, brought that to our speakers. We just got the ability to now do it our way instead of other ways. So,
Question for you: can the Perlisten in walls handle reference levels?
well, of course, any speaker can
Dominance.
handle reference levels. So it's a great question, but I think it's very distinctly different because what size is your room? You know, take a set of speakers and put them 6 inches from your head, and they'll play reference level. So really, it's about the size of your room. So yeah, I mean, S7T is 117 dB peak with 3% distortion. They'll hit 100, and we used those in a very large room at CDN, an 18-seat home theater, and that system was hitting 129 dB peaks.
Hmm.
And that's with S5's eyes as surrounds. That was with the S4S as ceilings. That was the limited edition for the fronts, and S7 eyes for wides. So, yeah, reference level is that's a question about the room size. So, how far back are you going to be from that position, and how much power do I have? And then you can start to answer reference level. So yeah, that's a great question. In a small size room, it's pretty easy to hit reference level. If
Yeah.
it's an auditorium and you're 20 feet away, reference level is very difficult.
I know you guys make those boxes that you can put them on your wall for the in walls
Yeah.
to make them look pretty. But is there going to be a specific on wall version of any of these speakers?
um you mean from like an S7i or S5i on wall version?
Yeah, or just
Yeah.
our A series, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. At this point in time, it's just that box being added on. Um, there's some developments coming up pretty quickly that are more that on wall.
Hmm.
It's a little bit of a case when you do the custom rooms,
Yeah.
you know, and that's a home theater question. I'm not sure we've actually exactly answered because it's based on our new developments and higher
Mm.
end 2 channel that will again bleed down into the home theater market.
Yeah.
Is bigger boxes basically for higher output capabilities, and bigger rooms, farther reference level at those seating positions that are farther back. At this point in time, no. If you're doing something that custom, it means you can also take that framework and angle it, build something behind it. You're building custom covers, cloths, whatever to make a home theater, so that something that's angled or something that's specific on wall that's developed or built not real sure of the advantage of it right now. I think that's kind of the product development we're debating internally and gathering right now. So yeah,
Mm.
again, great question, but I'm not sure.
I mean, because I've reviewed a bunch of just like straight up on wall home theater speakers, just because it's
Yeah,
you don't have to cut into the wall, and if you're somebody that wants to, I want to
yeah,
upgrade every 2 years or something like that. Like,
yeah,
here's
absolutely.
here's the RBH ones, here's the Dolly ones, here's the
Yeah.
Procella ones.
Yeah, and that situation has really been, our in walls, the exact same performance, use our frame, and you've got exactly the same SKU for, just a few more dollars. And it's adaptable. It's pretty. You can paint it, so you can paint it any color you want to. So it has some definite advantages in that situation. And, the design, the acoustics wouldn't be any different. So I could take an S5i and put it in a black box and then you mount that to the wall. But how is that any different than our frame? Taking the existing product and putting in there. And, for us, I think it's how many SKUs are too many, how many SKUs are just right for the application. Is it, you know, what's the right balance there? Yeah.
Mm. So, what target curve in room do you aim for on music? Subs are dialed in with mini DSP.
Yeah. So, in general, I still believe in letting the speaker be the speaker, because we do kind of believe in a flat frequency response. Um, but there is no wrong curve, so to speak. If you have, so I'll take this from 2 points: the subwoofer blending in with mains, and then the mains. So we still believe in kind of that flat frequency response. Generally, the room doesn't affect it above your transition frequency, right? So maybe that 400 hertz, 300 hertz on down is where room modes and everything becomes more heavily room oriented versus what the speaker is doing in the room. So if you have EQ, you want a little more high frequencies. When I was designing hearing aids, there's a million ways why, all three of us together have very different listening preferences at high frequencies. Because of the ear cavity, the size of the shape of our ears, the volume of air in our ear canals, we have a different ear resonance. We have hearing loss. We get a little older. So it makes a lot of sense why people have listening preferences of saying, I prefer something, maybe speaker a little more bright or not, or whatever. On the other end of the spectrum, there's also a dramatic amount of difference in what people prefer as bass.
Mm.
So people call me all the time of like, I'm not a bass head. I listen at low levels, blah, blah, blah. What do I need for subwoofers? And I kind of gauge from the size of room, maybe what might apply. And they call me back and they're like, this is awesome, but I want more. I'm like, you told me you weren't a bass head. And you already have this, probably one of the, I over even spec it. They're like, I just want more. I'm like, okay, here you go. Bass is the hardest thing, I think, to spec because it's not about a specific target and this is the right target. Everybody agrees. No, we all have preferences. And
Yeah.
even with different content, we want different, more or less bass. So, if I'm two channel sound quality, this is my number one pet peeve. Everybody takes that target curve they get from their receiver and they start boosting at 120 and they raise it by 10 dB or 5 or 8 or dB and they do that all the way down to whatever.
Yeah.
I think if you guys try it out there, 80 too much, 50, even 80 hertz and above for sure. 80, 90, 100, 120, 150. I guarantee you, a lot of you have way too much information there. If you
Mm.
just take those down to reference level, meaning flat with the loudspeaker, you will have a much, much, much better sound experience. There's almost always too much energy in there. Whatever the bland target curve they give you when you open up DRAC, don't use it, please. Um, the second case is if somebody is maybe listening really, really, really loud, you're boosting bass and you're crossing over at 80 hertz because everybody kind of chooses that general frequency and it's a good frequency. That's why it's there. Now you're boosting your mains by 10 dB at 80 to 100 to 120. So you're just really creating distortion for extra output that your mains likely may not like.
Mhm.
You know, generally I've never had any problems with our speakers, but you know, if you have another product, you may have issues there. So don't boost too much in those areas for sound quality and potentially for THD in your mains. But I do love that 5, 8, 10 dB kind of boost below 80 hertz.
Yeah.
Generally, I kind of start that around 60 hertz, um, and then vocals and mains. If I'm a two-channel system, then it's probably more like 4 to 5. If it's home theater, then I'm more in that 8, 10 frame because I'm a little bit of a bass head too.
So, when when I review movies, and I think Haterade too, like I don't add boost. If I'm watching a movie by myself, yeah, I got like a 5 to 10 dB boost for bass, 80
Yeah,
hertz one down. But if I'm reviewing a movie, I usually don't do bass just so I can keep every title as even as possible. But then you
yeah.
get those guys that are like, "You are wrong. There is so much bass in this." Blah 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 blah.
Something's wrong
What
with your
what is
system.
your thought process on that? Like, should you really have a boost for bass, or should you not?
Yeah, I mean, this is preference.
Yeah,
So, if you like it, you like it. You bought that system to enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it, right?
yeah,
So, to me, yeah, add the boost in. I've listened to movies when they're flat.
yeah,
There's still a crazy amount of bass, right?
yeah,
And so we do this all the time in two-channel world too. Is every time you make, especially with bass, it's a heavy influencer.
yep,
Is your perception of the overall experience at all frequencies is heavily based on bass, but also other frequencies. Even if I'm, playing with EQ at 2, 300, 400, 500, doesn't matter. If you play with that a little bit, it changes your overall perspective of the whole system.
yep,
So you have to recheck of, hey, how does that sound? A lot of people saying, oh, you just bass and it may sound not so bright now because you raised the bass level. So then you start putting boost in somewhere else. I'm like, you're just doing this downward spiral.
yep,
Turn the bass down, and now the perception of overall high frequencies and detail and accuracy and sparkle is now much better, and you think it's the right amount of bass. So the spectral balance of that your overall system dramatically, you know, changes. So I really would ask people to say make a small change, and then view what your perception is, and you might be surprised saying, "Hey, I do like it a little more better or more enjoyable, with a little less bass. Maybe it is 5 dB. You're still getting a ton of bass. You're going
mm,
to have the dynamic range, and now speech is intelligible. You can, it doesn't sound muddled." Especially if you boost above 100 hertz, please don't do that because all your intelligibility goes away. And then you start maybe boosting in other frequencies where you really don't need to. So
Any thoughts on coming out with amplifiers for non-subwoofers to go along with the DSP 1500 subwoofer amp? Also, maybe other AV gear like processors, AV receivers.
I can guarantee you there's two things on that list we will never do:
Processors and receivers.
processors and receivers, because the amount of work, effort, and time and firmware and software headaches, it's just never a category I want to endure, as a especially from tech support perspective.
And licensing too. I'm probably sure you got to get Dolby
Oh yeah,
Atmos and
no, it's crazy.
DTSX and all
You
that.
know, there's a lot of really stiff competition out there as well too. So it's just not our thing. Amps, you never know. I think we will always have, from a subwoofer perspective, and high frequency amps. You never know. But from a subwoofer perspective, we will always have a subwoofer with an amp because our firmware is very specific. We do a lot of really, really cool things. A lot of people said, hey, can I have a more affordable product and just have a passive subwoofer? And I'll do the amplification. I guarantee you, I know more about my woofer than you do. Meaning, I know better ways to protect it, prevent it from going into distortion, protect you from having a bad sound experience. We do some really cool things with our limiters about not creating distortion and maximizing that limiter, doing different things at different bands and different frequencies that are pretty unique in the industry. And so, that's why we've got the reputation of being a great subwoofer company as well, too. And, it's kind of the old Bose thing, always control the demo, right?
Hmm.
If I can give you a subwoofer and you're never going to have a, extremely distorted situation or listening and, experience, you're going to say, wow, these are great subwoofers. We have a lot of people say, can't you unleash that a little bit? Because we want a little more output, and I can tell it's still really, really clean, but it's still you're never going to get a bad experience because we're setting those limiters properly and protecting the product, making sure you get a great sound experience every time. So
Let's take one last question here from
sure.
Stephen Kelly. Can the A series be used with AV receivers or are separate amplifiers advised? I would hope my A1H would be good enough.
Yeah, that's always the perspective of the amplifiers. There's a lot of high end receivers. So the number one thing to really look at is can they handle 4 ohms? A lot of the more affordable ones really, really stop at 6 ohms. And they'll make sound, but when you start to turn it up, they'll shut down, they'll overheat, they're going to distort, and then you're not getting the greatest experience either. So as long as it can handle 4 ohms, yes. But there's one number one thing that you should always consider, and dynamic range. So with Perlisten, we believe in lots of dynamic range, and you're paying for that. If you're buying one of our products, you bought a product with a lot of dynamic range. We're very sensitive. We have people use tube amps on our stuff all the time because an S7T is 92 dB sensitive. However, when there's a 20 dB peak, you got to have 20 dB of amplification available to reproduce that peak. So you're really selling yourself short on what you purchased. You purchased something that has dynamic range and you're not utilizing it. So that's why we always advertise buy as much power as you can afford. Amplification is pretty cheap these days.
Yeah.
But get what you paid for. Don't buy a Maserati and drive around the block, 10 times. You want to open it up sometimes, right? So have the ability to say every once in a while I can crank up. And I can go 150 on my Maserati. So do the same thing with your speakers. That amplification allows you to have the dynamic range. And a lot of people say only listen at 85 dB. Well, there's some music has crest factor at 30 dB. So, 85, 95, 105, 115. There you go. So you got to hit 115 in some of these music situations. And you got to have 30 dB of gain. So a lot of amplifiers are 26, 24 dB gain. So, you got to have that capabilities to reproduce those peaks if you want to hear them.
Well, before we leave, let's drop this right here just in case we have some audiophile fans in the house with Perlisten speakers. This has just come out. Oops, hold on. Where are you at? Oh, over here. This has just came out today. Also hit the AMC theaters as well. Some of you guys might be interested. This is the new Taylor Swift, The Life of a Showgirl on vinyl for $34.99. Links will be in the video's description for all you Swifties out there. Erik, are you a Swiftie?
Uh, yeah, sure. I've only heard the music on the radio, but
Hesitation.
But all right, Haterade, before we head out of here, what do you got coming up? Anything good?
Uh, working on some stuff right now. I don't know if anything's going to be out this week. I think I've got about 8 projectors sitting around that I need to get started on. So
Yes.
it's going to be a projector heavy few months. So sorry, guys.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You know, can you say what projectors you're going
Oh
to be
yeah,
working in?
I have the Sony Bravia 8. I've actually had that probably for the longest. Sony Bravia 8. I have their newest Epson that came out. I forget the model number.
1200.
LS 1200, or is it 12,000?
So,
No,
yeah, maybe
1200,
1200. I don't
yeah.
know. Something like that.
And then I have a couple of Anchor projectors. One that should have released about a month ago. Shane, you already released yours, but
Yeah.
I've got 2 of those, and then I have a BenQ projector. What else? I got a Valerian Max coming in. I think Shane, he just dropped his review on that. So I got that one coming in,
cool.
and I'm probably forgetting some other ones. I've got boxes everywhere. I got to keep track of. So, and then I have I think you have the Hisense, the new Hisense speaker.
Oh yeah, the Saturn.
The Saturn,
Which I think
yeah.
you
So
have.
I have
yeah,
that.
Saturn.
So I'm behind on a lot of stuff, but at least I know I'll have some stuff coming out the next couple months through the end of the year, and probably through January.
Nice. Look what I got. I know some of you guys have been waiting for this. This is
Oh,
the
yeah.
What is this called?
RS
RS90 from Haptique. I still got to open this, but it looks cool. You have the
I
folder
just
circle,
started
right?
doing I don't have the remote here with me, but I have the folded circle that I just started doing today. I'm really liking it. It's really cool. It's really customizable. You can use it with Home Assistant, so I've been doing that all day. There's a lot of functionality in it that you can go in there and customize. So I'll be playing with that over the next couple weeks.
And hopefully we can add some A series speakers to the list of review gear.
Yeah. And we are building a brand new headquarters right now. And so we are
Nice.
building our 2-channel system. And probably in another year, we're going to be doing our home theater.
Nice.
So it's going to be a giant home theater. So we have our
Awesome.
Christy Griffin in the house now. So
When that's the first thing you name, you know it's going to be.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's gonna be a big system. So we're looking forward to that, and we're developing some new products that will definitely do that size room justice.
How big a room are you thinking?
We are 23 feet wide
Jeez.
by 28 feet long by 12 feet high.
Oh man, that's gonna be nice.
So going to be a pretty big room, biggest screen we can fit, obviously, in that space. We're developing some new products that will probably be the flagships in those. So looking forward to it, man.
And where's this at?
It's going to be in Wisconsin. So
Okay.
we're in Madison, Wisconsin. So we're about 2 hours from Chicago. So we are doing phase 1 and phase 2. We're doing the first phase right now, which is going to be some office space, 2-channel rooms, some offices, some production, brand new clipple room, so we don't have to hear it when we're in the office.
Is
And,
this for customers can come in or just prospective buyers?
Absolutely. So it's really for some of those high-end clients that want to come in and see space, demo space and stuff like that. But it's also, for local clients. So we really cater to some of our local guys that say, hey, you're right here. Can I just come over and have a listen? So yeah, come on over. Shane, Jordan, you'll be welcome to come over anytime you want to. We'll probably do an event coming up.
Nice.
In probably a year or so, maybe. Hopefully, if everything goes to plan, maybe a little longer than that, until we have the home theater done. So we might wait until we have the home theater done too. That's phase 2. We'll invite you over and have a fun time.
Nice.
Good.
Can we get
We'll
some
order
cheese hats?
Giordano's.
You can get some cheese hats. We can take you to a UW game. Yeah, we can do some fun stuff. Cheese and bratwurst, right?
Yeah.
Well, all right. So these are now available at Audio Advice. You can find some links down below in this video's description. Walberto has picked up an entire A series home theater already. So he's very happy with them. I'm looking forward to checking them out. I'm sure Haterade is as well.
Definitely.
Got, Erik, thank you for joining us today. Guys, thank you for joining
Thanks,
us today
everyone.
as well. We shall catch you in the next video.
Take care, guys.
Cool. Talk